I'm here at Charlie Vettner Park, and we're gonna find out how a professional attacks this course.
Hi! Oh, you said attack the course. Sorry. This is a perfect example of why you need a backhand and a sidearm. This is a standard travel 300 feet and turn to the right shot. You cannot make a backhand disc do that right-handed. But with a sidearm, the shot's basically routine. Oh wait, listen for chains. Oh, that was close.
So what Scott said's all good and all, but I don't have a forehand, so I'm feeling a little attacked. Not before that was a real attack. And I can't listen for chains because I faded out.
So this is basically the perfect example of why you have to have a backhand and a sidearm. My shot was no better than yours. We hit the fairway, we both had a good angle, we both missed the trees on both sides, we both had good speed control. The physics dictated that yours faded away from the target, mine faded towards the target. I'm parked, you're not. I didn't throw a better shot than you. I just threw the correct shot. This is a really good par 4, and I'm going to explain what a professional is likely considering when they throw this hole, and a mistake that a lot of amateur players might possibly make. This is a fantastic hole. This is actually a great example of how you can have a par 4 without just making it 1,000 feet long, because it's a strategic landing zone to a strategic upshot. The better the landing, the easier the upshot, but with lots of risk reward along the way. So it's a brilliantly designed par 4. There's basically 2 ways to attack this, because you need to get through this tunnel and you need to get up to an opening, and then you need to button hook around back to the target, which means the farther you land up on your drive, the easier the approach is. You land short, you can still get the hole. Well, I mean, by that you can get a birdie, but you're gonna have a trickier approach shot. So the goal is to push as far as possible. Now there's basically 2 windows to try to hit the landing area. There's a low window and a high window. They're about the same size. And on either case, if you don't hit the window, you're probably gonna get a par or worse. So the risk of throwing up high is not greater than the risk of throwing down below. So then you have to ask yourself, well, what is the reward for throwing high versus throwing low? And this is how me and probably most of the pros would look at this shot. If you successfully hit the window, whether you throw low or high, let's say there's a 60% chance of executing your shot through the window. If you throw high and you hit the window, you probably have a 90% chance of getting a birdie. You're pushed far enough up the hill where the approach shot is pretty much routine. If you throw low, you're basically taking the identical risk, a 60% chance of hitting the window, a 40% chance of a par or worse. But with the lower window, there's also the possibility that you execute successfully your drive, yet you have a more difficult second shot, giving you maybe a 70% chance of birdie. So this is an example where there is 0 penalty effectively to trying to throw high. So it might look like you're going for the big shot or you're being super aggressive. You're not. It's actually mathematically correct to throw the high shot, because if you execute your shot, it's a tragedy. It's a little bit overstated, but feels like a tragedy that you don't get rewarded for the great drive. So I'm gonna throw a sidearm through the big high top window, and if I don't hit anything, it's probably 90% chance of birdie. Okay, not a good shot, but I had an equal chance of not executing the lower shot either.
As a non-forehand thrower, for one, I'm throwing just a layup shot with a zone and trying to get to the little landing zone to the left up there. And that gives me a pretty good flat spot to throw probably another all-out drive to try to land to the second landing zone that Scott was talking about.
Nice shot. Perfect.
Woo! At least I'm playing some of my best golf in front of Scott Stokely. How's that happen?
That was a great shot. Okay, so my shot actually landed way in the woods right there. We don't need to show that. But like I said, there's about a 40% chance that a good player is gonna throw this drive in the woods, whichever route they take. What I'm looking for is landing up here, because if I successfully hit the high window, then it's just a routine shot around the trees under the basket. This is the reward, that's the payoff for making the right choice. Just for information, that easy hyzer I had, if you had thrown the low shot and threw a darn good drive, you're throwing down there all the way around the tree, having to stall your shot through the gap and back. That's why I said the best player in the world, only 60 or 70% at best from down there, 90% from up here. Oh yeah, and just a heads up, one of the best kept secrets as far as how to score well on a hole, throw your second shot from the spot where you planned on landing, not where you actually landed. Almost a guaranteed birdie every time doing it that way. Hole 8 is a bit counterintuitive, because if you look at the hole, you're gonna penetrate forward and then you're gonna turn to the right. So it seems at first glance that you would throw a sidearm, probably with a disc with a higher fade, that's gonna go and turn to the right. The problem is that if you turn too far to the right, which by the way, you're almost certainly gonna do if you do the shot I just described, you are going to be penetrating into the woods, possibly in a position where your only out is to pitch back to the fairway, lay it up, take the bogey. Instead, this hole is actually a backhand and hyzer, because you need to turn the disc to the right, but then instead of continuing right, it needs to begin to fade and penetrate forward. The two reasons you want to do that. Number one, that'll most closely follow the path of the fairway, meaning if it goes into the woods, it has a better chance of going into the woods later rather than earlier, meaning pitching out of the woods is possibly going to give you a shot to the hole. You can save par, but you also have to factor in the fact that you have a chance of getting a birdie. A sidearm on this hole has almost no chance of birdie unless you do some real weird, tricky hyzer flip. Nah, forget that. Take something slightly overstable like a stall, turn it a little bit, penetrate forward, and if you get the angle in the gap, you are going to get the birdie occasionally. Ooh, that's good. Oh, that was so close, but I'm in the fairway still, it's still a par.
I do something very similar to what Scott does, but I'm throwing a little bit less of a stable fairway driver, and I normally don't get the carry off of my shot that he's explaining, and a lot of that has to do with the speed and stability of an overstable driver. This is the reason that the AM shot is arm speed. And I'm pulling too wide. Woo!
Honestly, that's the first bad shot you've thrown today. You make me feel a little better. I've thrown about 5 bad. So thank you. So because I threw the correct shot, even when I messed up, I was still pretty much in the fairway. It's still a par. Probably. Hey, all right, not too shabby.
So I want to give a big thanks to Scott Stokely for hanging out today, showing this AM some pro routes on the course, but be sure to check out his channel because the toughest hole at Charlie Vettner is going to be on his YouTube channel.
And the final tip of the day, if you don't want to get your nose broken, make sure you put this hand on the side of the head. That way when you pull back and he slams his head, it's going to be into your shoulder, not your nose. I'm not letting go. Thanks, everyone. If you're interested in my teaching, go to scottstokely.net. You can read about my upcoming full-day seminars, my 2-hour clinics, even my 6-month online Become a Complete Disc Golfer class, scottstokely.net. Thanks, everyone.